Now let us go back to this game of Kramnik, which was a classical game. So Adam's Kramnik. Kramnik played g6. Kramnik played g6. Castles, bishop g7, rook e1. Castles d3, knight e6. Knight e4, our typical position. Okay, here Demchenko played move b6 versus Giri. Kramnik played move f5 immediately. ef6, cf6. Okay, we have our typical structure. White needs to try to trade bishops and preferably take control of e-file. Then white would have some advantage. Adams played move here, rook b1, which is a little bit timid move. Bishop e3 was probably best move. b6. Queen d2. I assume that Adams did not play this because, let's say, if move like queen c1, probably move g5 is the best. We go back to our standard counterplay. And if knight g3, queen d5. With complicated play. Here both of the sides can easily become better or worse. Because this is again this main counterplay which black has in this line. In this type of positions. Stronger for white is queen d2. Because now g5 is less good. Because there is a problem with the square. Move queen d5, move queen d5 not helping. Because pawn is protected. I have queen on d2, so I can play move c4 and knight f5. So queen d5 is not helping now. That's why queen d2 is a strong move. I guess the reason why Adams did not play bishop e3, b6, queen d2 is that he could not calculate consequence of b5 because queen d2 is a pawn sacrifice. Knight g5, bishop e2. I guess that he couldn't calculate it. Rook a b1, bishop b7. Okay, this is not easy position for a human to sort of really come up with a judgment. White has compensation, but how much? Honestly, I wouldn't know. I really wouldn't know. I would be saying that white has a compensation, but maybe compensation not to be worse. Your Stokovich will tell you that white is sitting on around +1, which is a bit surprising to me. But again, probably the basic problem is file. Strong control of the e-file, which hampers black's ability to develop. And if black plays move like knight c7, threatening h6, white plays simple move like h4. And if you hit my knight, I go to h3. So such a position is much more than just a compensation. White is clearly better, but understandable. In a practical game, it is very difficult to make this call, to make this judgment. So that's why Adams played move rook b1. I think that he wanted to play bishop e3, b6, queen d2, but he simply couldn't evaluate this pawn sacrifice, which of course is easier when you ask Stockfish and he tells you that this position is around +1. Which again, to me, I would make the same mistake like Adams. I would not be able to judge this correctly. I would be thinking probably compensation, maybe compensation that I'm not worse. But this is actually clear advantage for white. So rook b1, but now it's not the same, b6. You cannot now develop this stuff with the tempi. b3, a5, a4, rook a7. Kramnik is playing this typical maneuver. Bishop b2. Okay, bishop is sort of handy on b2 because if some stuff with the g5 comes, you don't then mind to have bishop developed on a b2 because you're not on e3 to be on some sort of 10 piece. Rook e7, queen d2. For black is not easy to push because at this particular moment, okay, this is a headache, this square. You don't want to allow knight to f5. So, for example, you would love to, if somehow you could easily roll the pawns. But you cannot exactly easily roll the pawns, so that's why Kramnik did not do it. He played move rook e7, queen d2, knight d4. Okay. He is now changing a pawn structure. Very logical decision. Knight d4, c d4. You may now wonder, does white have any chances actually here? Or is position completely equal? Or can maybe black hope for advantage because after all black has two bishops and black seems to be taking space? Well, we are going to learn that actually e-file is important. And Kramnik is going to lose this game because he will underestimate importance of only open file in the position. Knight g3. Here, the best move was rook e8. Holding the file. And most probably game would be drawn. Most probably something like this would have had happened. And most probably game would have been drawn. But this didn't happen in the game. And now, for example, you can close. And the draw is by far the most likely outcome of this game. Or to first take. Tricks are not working. Kramnik, he played move c5. Willing to, of course, stabilize his pawn chain and to open up his bishop. Very logical move. But he underestimated that after rook e7, rook e7, rook e1, e-file will prove now crucial. Queen d6. Queen d8 does not exactly solve problems. Because if you trade the rooks, okay, you have problems. Defending a pawns, maybe you can struggle on with such a move. Also, yeah, I think this is why he didn't want to do it. He played move queen d6 to prevent this queen coming to f4. Okay, this is making a lot of sense. Because you may wonder how is now white going exactly to improve. Adams does it in a very good way. He improves his bishop, wants to do the trade, and then to come with his bishop to f4 and to terrorize these pawns. f5. Logical move because Kramnik wants to control this knight, right? With his pawn chain. Queen f4. Difficult moment. Queen d7 was played. Okay, covering everything. Problem after knight f1 is that you still cannot so easily trade rooks, because if you trade the rooks again, I would take. And such a move is going to be headache. Kramnik had option. He could have taken on f4, bishop f4, bishop d7, let's say. I want to start trading the stuff. If bishop, for example, moves, I can push. Takes, takes, takes. hoping with the two bishops to hold the draw. The same thing can be said if, for example, rook e7. Take, rook f7, take, attack pawns, b5, takes, takes, takes. Does black have a decent chances to hold the game? Yes. I think that black should not lose this. But is it easy to take this decision now? Can black actually lose this kind of position? Yes, he can. Of course he can lose it. I think that he will hold it because he has two bishops and he has more space. He will be taking a bit more space with his pawns. I think that black will hold the position. But it is a difficult decision in the game. Just to take queen f4, bishop f4, knowing that bishop is coming and that you're gonna lose your pawns. You cannot protect it, by the way, because rook f7 there is always a check. So Kramnik played probably the most human move. Queen d7, but now he suffers. Knight f1, very good move. Improving the knight. Adams was always known for his quiet moves, improving the position. Bishop e7, f3, taking away any potential tactics. Bishop f6. Here, compared to, let's say, the other game of Carlsen versus Rosenthalis, where Rosenthalis played f3 with similar ideas, is different situation because this king is not open. Bishop f6. Now how to improve position further? Very smart. Queen g3. Opening the bishop. Many moves it is for his bishop. Queen d8. Sadly, e5 matters. Again, will be same story. This is very unpleasant position for black. Because does white threaten anything huge? No. But white keeps on improving his position. And white has way to improve his position. I would play now, for example, I will move the bishop. Let's suppose that black makes a pass move. Okay, I can improve the bishop. Or I can improve the bishop maybe like this. Again, if you trade some stuff, you'll be hanging. I can also improve my knight. So there are many ways. Kramnik played move queen d8. Probably he played move queen d8 because he wanted to have some bishop h4 maybe idea. But queen d8 is probably not a good move because it allows rook to e6. Is this position holdable for black? Maybe. Perhaps it's holdable. But is it easy to play? No, it is not easy to play. Even if you're Kramnik, it is not easy to play. So queen d8 is probably mistake because, okay, rook is coming to e6. I think that this is maybe the crucial mistake to allow this rook to enter. Probably move like some bishop move was a better move. Maybe bishop d5. Something like this. But position remains difficult. Position remains very difficult. Because you cannot succeed, you cannot trade. Because if you trade, you have problems. V king. So you cannot trade, you must move rook somewhere. Okay, then I improve the knight. This is just a horrible situation for black. Horrible situation. So it is because of this e-file, white cannot enter it immediately, but it is like hanging like a sword, you know, and black cannot coordinate his pieces here. So queen d8, Adam centered rook e6, bishop e7, bishop h6, rook f6, rook e2, keeping the pressure. For example, this was leading also to white's advantage, but not so clear. Because black is suddenly starting to cover everything. Of course, Adams, he keeps e-file. And this is a nightmare. Complete nightmare. Bishop d5. Now comes elegant move, bishop g5. Now exchange is going to be lost. Because if you move rook, okay, I can simply take. I can start collecting pawns if I want to. Or I can decide for a quite unpleasant pin. King f7. Takes. Okay. Black is hoping with the two bishops that now actually this beautiful rook is not going to be able to enter the e-file. And it's correct, this beautiful rook cannot enter e-file immediately. But white is exchange up. Game continued another 30 moves. And Adams won. So this was games Adams Kramnik played in World Championship in Las Vegas in '99. And this actually game shows very well that in such a relatively simple symmetrical position, e-file matters a lot. And that here logical move like c5 was serious mistake instead of move like rook e8. Because white took this file and black never managed to actually equalize it anymore. So this is, I think, that we have now seen good comparisons to this typical English Open in color reversed. I'm mainly talking about this kind of pawn structure, this kind of position, this kind of particular situation. Because we have now seen it in a number of games of extremely strong players, among the world best players, and this is okay. We have seen that even in such a position, player of Kramnik's stature is not immune of underestimating, let's say, the e-file and making this kind of mistakes. So those positions are very complex to play. And very often somewhere here, black is almost equal, but not exactly equal. Like, for example, this pawn sacrifice idea, bishop e3, b6, queen d2, still leads to some advantage for white. So I hope that these ideas are going to be useful to a viewer, because when you play these kind of positions, it is difficult to kind of judge it by some clear calculation, because play is not that forced. But understanding what is important, what you are trying to achieve, I think helps a lot.